So in this video, we're going to talk about the avoidant, right? I'm sure that so many of you have had this experience, and me too. My specific person, my partner, has been highly avoidant in the past. And when I met him, I used to be so frustrated, and I used to think, what's going on? Why doesn't he want to just be with me every day? Every time we're together, it's amazing. Why would he not just drop it all for me? I don't get it. And I remember once in the pub, I actually pushed him against the wall and said, "What are you doing? Why aren't we together? I don't understand it." I was not cool at all. And I was doing a lot of the things that were pushing him further and further away. So in this video, we're going to talk about understanding the avoidant and ways to handle it. And I want you to pay particular attention to point number 5, because that's the one that we really need to think about. Okay, so before I get into this video, I want to let you know that I've got my Conscious Creators Masters Academy starting again. It sells out every time. There are 4 spaces left. It's incredible. It's a beautiful 12 weeks of transformation. You can't leave this program without some kind of transformation if you stick to the program. If you come to the sessions, if you participate in the group, you will experience a shift within yourself and it will change your life. That's me being very confident about this program. I have seen it happen over and over and over again over the last couple of years, which is why I'm still running it, because it's great. Anyway, enough about that. You can find out more on the website, or you could email me and we can have a one-to-one discovery call to talk about you and where you're at. So the avoidant. The first thing you need to know and understand about them is that they're avoidant. They've got something in their childhood from their past that has triggered them into a behavioural adaptation, which means that this is how they function in the world in order to keep themselves safe. Now, there may be many reasons, and actually you might know some of them. You might already know them well enough to know what has created an experience for them that would have likely led them to a behaviour that made them want to hide. Yeah? So we need to understand this, but they are like a fish in water. Yeah, they don't know what they don't know. They don't know any different other than how they've behaved, and they might identify with some of their behaviours, which means that they think that it's them. They think, I'm just like this. I don't know why I'm like this. And they say very frustrating things like this, but you know different, because you can see that they're just avoidant. It can be very confusing, and it can make you feel with their behaviour, which is, you know, to retreat, to hide, to be hot and cold and all of this kind of stuff. It can make you feel like they don't like you, they hate you, they're not interested in you, or that they're just rude or something like that. So it can be really confusing and horrible, really, to be on the other side of it. But when you have an understanding of this, then you can kind of have a bit more empathy and compassion about it and not take it personally. And that's the second thing I want to say. Don't take it personally. Don't make it mean anything about you. But the thing is that you're likely drawn to this person because they're going to bring up your own stuff, yeah? So you will likely initially make it mean something about you. You'll likely make it mean something about your connection, about how they feel about you. But what I'm saying is don't, because that's going to create more complications. The other thing is that we have to kind of, with the avoidant, they are terrified. Yeah, they're really scared. They're scared of intimacy. They're scared of connection. They're scared of rejection. Whatever it is, whatever their story is, they are scared. So if we go towards them, ask them for answers, ask them for more deeper connection, demand more from them, demand them to do more for us, demand this or that, they are going to get scared. They're going to get frightened. Now, I'm not saying we need to tiptoe around the avoidant, because we haven't got to point 5 yet, right? So bear with me. But I'm just helping you understand the avoidant, okay? So that you can understand how their response will be if we're to go towards them too much. So I remember in my relationship, this has happened so much, where I felt so triggered by Johnny's a coping mechanism, which is to retreat. He doesn't want to talk about stuff, or he didn't want to talk about things. He wanted to just say, right, that was a problem, so we're going to bury it under the sand and I'm going to get on with my life and do other things, avoid it completely. And then my coping mechanism was to talk about things. So that was a real clash. Okay. And while I hadn't worked on myself, I kept on going to him, needing him to fix it with me, needing him to be here with me. And yes, we do want that in a relationship. And I'm not saying that that's not what we're evolving towards, but first we have to understand ourselves and we have to understand them, and how this kind of incompatible wounding but compatible wounding actually has to be an individual process that we work on within ourselves, so that we can approach things differently. Because if you think about it, if I didn't have a wound of, you know, whatever the wound was, then I'm much less likely to be triggered by someone retreating. I'm much more likely to be able to see that for what it is and not take it personally. But where we're taking it personally, we want to fix it. We want validation. We want them to be the one that validates us again, so that we can feel safe. So we do things that end up pushing them away. So remember that they're scared, and also you have something going on too. So it's likely a combination of both things. The other thing is that they're likely to feel really engulfed and trapped in relationships. They're likely to feel pressure. Yeah. So with the avoidant, we have to maybe use humor. You know, humor I've found really helpful in my relationship. You know, like, well, I don't mean to alarm you, but I love you. You know, like just creating some kind of lightness to the situation, so that it doesn't alarm the person initially. Again, I'm not saying this is where we stay, because actually even humor is an avoidance tactic. But while we're getting to know each other, while this person is learning to feel safe with you, we want to use lightness as much as we can. So point number 5 is that if you have been drawn to someone like this, and I touched on this before, if you've been drawn to someone who is avoidant, it's very easy to point the finger at them and to say, if they were only healthy in their emotional world, if they could only see that they're avoidant, if they could only see their problem, then everything would be fine. When actually that gives all of them the responsibility, and then you are avoiding your own stuff. Okay, I've done this too. I've definitely done this. I spent such a lot of time wanting Johnny to heal, thinking that that would fix our dynamic, when actually I was not looking at my own responsibility and my own responsibility in the connection that was likely pushing him away, like I said before, through avoiding my discomfort by wanting him to fix it. So I actually had avoidance too, and I bet you do as well. Often people think I'm the anxious one in the relationship. Anxiety and avoidance is exactly the same thing. And do you know what that is? Fear. It is fear. It's just expressed differently. So you two have a lot in common. When you can actually be really honest with yourself and you learn to actually be as vulnerable as possible, you'll realise that for you that might be terrifying too. For you to be really honest and say something like, hey, look, I am actually not okay. I know I've been acting like I'm okay and that I've been going along with this, but in reality, I'm really insecure because I feel really insecure about the dynamic that we've had. And because I'm not really saying that I'm insecure, that means that I can't express myself properly, and I can't say that I love you, and I can't say that I want to be closer to you, and I can't really be myself, and then you don't get the true essence of me, and then there's no reality in our connection. And really what I want is to get to know you and for you to get to know me from a real place. And I'm as scared as you, but what I can see is that that's possible, that we could do that together. And like, okay, that might be a bit much for the avoidant initially, but notice how scary it is for you to say. Yeah, notice how scary that is for you to express, for you to be that vulnerable. Also notice that where you've attracted someone who is distant, away from you, can be cold, whatever, there is likely, in fact I would say 100%, there's a reason that is rooted in your childhood, which has created a belief about you, your worth, your good enoughness, whatever it is, your lovableness. And that has been mirrored back to you through finding people who are far away. That on some level probably feels safer to you. So you see how similar you are to the avoidant. You know, the avoidant wants connection and finds people, but then can't ever, seem to commit. They will commit if we work on this connection and work on your responsibility within it, right? But they find people, but then they're like, oh, I'll try it, then I'll go away. I'll try a bit, and then I'll go away. But equally, you've identified it as anxious. You get very attached to people, but they might be really far away. So maybe you can only handle a certain amount as well. It's very easy to point the blame fully at the avoidant and not look within. So if you're interested in really understanding, healing, letting go, completing the past so that you can show up differently and be a safe place for the avoidant without feeling like your needs aren't being met, without feeling like, you're settling, without feeling like you're being hard done by, and you can actually show up as a loving space and come from love rather than fear. That's the sort of thing that we do in the Conscious Creators Masters Academy. And it's through these amazing conversations that we have where you realise, oh yeah, of course I have that belief. Oh my God, I can complete that now because I realise that a 5-year-old had that idea, not me. And you can actually complete the past, heal the past, and then come into relationships from a good enough place, from you actually knowing and feeling and believing that you're good enough. And from there, everything changes because you don't need to put pressure on the avoidant. And then as a result, they feel safe. Yeah, but if you're listening to this and you're thinking, okay, right, I'll just not put pressure on them and then they'll start feeling safe, but actually you're doing it because you need them to be with you, then you're still operating from fear, and that will result in the same anxiety, the same obsession, the same cycle going round and round and round again. So we need to actually unroot this thing, like uproot it, and just free yourself from it, okay? So that you can understand it and operate differently. And it is very powerful. It's transformed my relationship completely from, Johnny was so highly avoidant, he'd barely speak to me on the phone. In fact, he wouldn't speak to me on the phone. He would only speak to me on Messenger for years. And let me just say, was I sitting around waiting and wondering? No, I was getting on with my life. And he was just someone who was very important to me, but was in the background. And I let go for a long time. So I wasn't sitting around manifesting for a long time, for anyone who's wondering. But I did wonder for a long time, why the hell is our whole relationship just on Facebook Messenger? And so nothing went anywhere because that's the way it was, and I was always chasing. So when I kind of let go and we met again, I was able, through having done a lot of my own work, to approach this very differently. And don't get me wrong, there was still fear there's still triggers, and our relationship has been the biggest testing ground, the biggest kind of evolution from being in the relationship, where a lot of my stuff has come to the fore because it had to, because we're so close. And whenever you get close to people, that's when the stuff comes out. So expect that. Actually, this is a really good point. If your avoidant is being avoidant, that probably means you've triggered something that's made them feel vulnerable, as in they like you. They feel like, oh, there's something going on here, That's one way of potentially seeing it. I'm not saying it's definitely the case, and I don't want anyone thinking that I'm giving any kind of false promises here, but it's one way of looking at it. When someone's like coming back and then they're running away, then they're coming back and they're running away, they want that intimacy, they want that closeness, but they don't know how to handle it, okay? Now, you can't change them. Right, don't try and be right about them. Don't try and tell them any of this, because they're going to come to this conclusion in their own time. The best way that you can handle it is by working on yourself and your own stuff that's making this situation so stressful for you. When it becomes less triggering, when it becomes less stressful, when you've let go a bit, right, you will approach this situation in an entirely new way. And as a result of that, they will evolve too, okay? So I hope you found this video useful. Like I say, if you want to join the Conscious Creators Masters Academy, we're starting again in 2 weeks, 4 spaces left. Love to see you there. It's amazing. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.